Okay guys, so today in our Zoom, we talked about long division and I showed you two different methods and there were two different methods in your notes. So I'm going to go through step by step the first example and the first method and then show you the second example in the second method and then do an example from at the bottom of your notes so that you can go back and watch this again as many times as you need to until you understand. The first method that we talked about was the cover up method, and that's where we go number by number. That is in our dividend here on the inside. Remember, this is called the dividend, this is the divisor, and then this is where your answer will be when you are finished, or what we call the quotient. Over here on the left hand side are all of your steps that you keep repeating each time that you get finished with a number. So the first one, we had 6,538 divided by 5. So when we start, and I put a little rectangle so that you could cover up, you can use your hand, you can use another piece of paper, but we really are going to look at this right now as 5 going into 6. And how many times is 5 going to go into 6? Well, I know that 5 goes into 6 one time. That's my dividing step. After I'm done with my dividing step, I multiply 1 times 5, and I put my answer down here below. That's my multiply. After I multiply, I'm going to subtract those two numbers. When I subtract 6 minus 5, I get 1. That's my subtract step. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to check to make sure that this answer right here is smaller than this answer up here. If it's not, then that means that I did not go enough times up here in my answer. So 1 is less than 5, so I checked, and I'm ready to bring down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this over and see what my next number is, which is 5, and I'm going to bring that 5 all the way down next to my 1. Make sure to see how everything I have is lined up, just like when we talked about adding and subtracting decimals and multiplying decimals. It's really important to make sure all of your things, all of your numbers stay lined up. So now I'm going to repeat my steps. I've brought down, now I'm ready to repeat. So I am going to now do the same thing that I did with my 6. I'm going to do it with 15. So how many times does 5 go into 15? That's my multiply. That would be 3 times. That's my divide. I'm going to multiply 3 times 5 right here to get 15. I put that under my 15. My next step is to subtract. 15 minus 15 is 0. And I'm going to check, is my 0 smaller than this 0 smaller than my 5? Yes, it is. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down. So I'm going to slide this over, see what my next number would be. I'm going to bring down my 3. And I'm going to repeat those steps. Divide 5 into 3. That would be 0 times. 5 does not go into 3, so I'm going to put 0. To keep going with my steps, I'm going to multiply 0 times 5, and I get 0. I'm going to subtract. And then lastly, I check. 3 is smaller than 5, so I'm good. And then I'm going to bring down my last number that I have, which is 8. So now I'm going to start back up at the top, and I'm going to divide. 5 goes into 38 7 times. After I divide, I multiply the number I just put up here on top. I'm going to multiply by my divisor over here. 7 times 5 is 35. After I multiply, I subtract. Now my next step would be to, I check, make sure my 3 is smaller than my 5, and it is. My next step would be to bring down, but since I have nothing left to bring down, I am done. So this 3 down here serves as my remainder, and this answer up here at the top, my 1,307, that's my answer with a remainder of 3. Answer that we got on when we did method 1 with the cover-up method. The second method I'm going to show you is what we'll call the stack method. If you guys in elementary school ever did the method where you had a division sign and then you had the tail, this is what I call the tail. This would probably be most similar to that method. However, you are not going to be permitted to use the tail method. I know some of you are able to do it that way. However, when your numbers get bigger, that method takes a very long time, and it's not as efficient as the two methods that I'm going to show you today. Now, if it's something that you really understand and that it can always work for you, I'm not going to not let you use it. I'm just letting you know that the two methods that I'm showing you today are more efficient than the tail method. So in this second method that I'm going to call the stack method is very similar to the cover-up method I showed you before. If you understand this method better, then you are more than welcome to use this method. If you understand the cover-up method better, then you are welcome to use the cover-up method. The steps are going to be the same. You're still going to divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, and repeat. So for the stack method, we're still going to cover up everything that is after the 6, but what we write on top in our quotient is going to look a little bit different than the cover-up method. So I'm still going to think 5 into 6, which is 1 time. However, this 6 is in the thousands place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the rest of those place values with 1,000, because I'm technically asking how many times does 5 go into 6,000, which is 1 time or 1,000 times. So I'm going to put my 1,000 on top, and I'm going to, after I divide, I'm going to multiply my 1,000 times 5, and I'm going to get 5,000. So I'm going to fill in my 5,000 underneath, and then I'm going to subtract. When I subtract 6,538, I get 1,538. So then I'm going to bring this down again, and I'm going to cover up. I'm going to cover up the 38, and I'm going to think 5 into 15. Well, since this 5 is in the hundreds place, I'm going to be thinking 5 into 15, which is 3 times. And since it's in the hundreds place and it lines up right here, my 3 has to go right above that. And then again, I'm going to fill in zeros afterwards. So 300 technically is what I'm saying, times 5 is 1,500. I'm going to move my rectangle out of the way so that I can subtract after I have multiplied. And I get 38. I now don't need to cover up. If I covered up, it's not going to let me, but if I would cover this up, I would get 5 into 3, which doesn't work. So I'm going to stay with 5 into 35, which is 7 times. So my 7 is going to again stack up here on top. I have 7 times 5, or sorry, this is not 35, this is 38. Sorry. I'm going to multiply my 7 times my 5, and I get 35, and I get a remainder of 3. I have nothing left to subtract from. Everything has been used. So here's the thing that's different about the method before is I'm going to add everything that I have stacked on top in order to get my answer. So 1,307, because I'm going to add all those together, and then I still have my remainder of 3, which if you remember, this is another example that's at the bottom of your notes. One of them that we completed in class, but just a video showing you step by step how we did that again. I'm again going to do both methods. So first the cover-up method, and then the second method, the stack method. If you like the stack method better and you understand that more, you can go ahead and fast forward the video right to that method. If you like this method better, then you can stop the video after this one and go on to your practice. So for the cover-up method, again, I'm going to go, how many times does 6 go into 5? Well, 6 doesn't go into 5. That's my divide. So I'm going to put a 0 up top. I'm then going to multiply 0 times 6, which equals 0. After I multiply, I subtract. 5 minus 0 is 5. After I subtract, I'm checking my 5 is smaller than my 6, so I'm ready to move on. After I check, I need to bring down. So I'm going to slide over, find my next number, bring that down next to my 5. Now I'm ready to divide 6 into 59. How many times does 6 go into 59? Which is 9 times. 9 times 6. Here, I'll start my steps over. So I did 59 divided by 6. Now I'm going to do 9 times 6, and I'm going to get 54. After I multiply, I'm going to subtract. 59 minus 4 is 5. After I subtract, I'm making sure 5 is smaller than 6. It is, so I'm ready to bring down. So I'm going to slide my rectangle over. And I'm going to bring down my 0. After I bring down, I'm going to repeat all the steps from above. So I'm going to now divide 50 by 6. So how many times does 6 go into 50? Which is 8 times. After I divide, I'm going to multiply. 8 times 6 is 48. After I multiply, I subtract. 50 minus 48 is 2. After I subtract, I check that 2 is smaller than 6, and it is, so now I'm ready to bring down. The last thing I have left to bring down is 4, which comes all the way down next to my 2. Then I'm going to divide 6 into 24, which is 4 times. I'm going to multiply 4 times 6, and I get 24. After I multiply, I subtract. Now in this case, I have a remainder of 0, so my final answer is 984, whatever is there on top of your division bar. We got when we used method 1. Last one, if you prefer the stack method, so we're still going to cover up like we did before. Divide 6 into 5, well that is 0. Instead of putting zeros all the way across, I'm just going to move my rectangle over to show 59. So I have 6 into 59, which is 9 times, and since that 9 is in the hundreds place, then I know that 6 goes into 59, or 5,900, 900 times. So then I'm going to do 900 times 6, which is 5,400. I'm going to subtract and see what I have left over. I'm going to have 4 minus 0 is 4, 0 minus 0 is 0, 9 minus 4 is 500, or sorry, 5, so I have 504. I'm then going to bring my rectangle down to cover up. Well, 6 doesn't go into 5, and that's in our hundreds place. We're going to do 6 into 50. And since this 0 is in the tens place, I know that 6 goes into 58 times. But since it's in the tens place, we're going to multiply it by 10 to make it 80. I'm going to multiply 80 times 6, which gets me 480. When I move my rectangle, I'm then going to subtract 504 minus 480, that would be 4. If I borrow from the 5, make that a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. I get 24. I could put my rectangle back and do 6 into 2, but that doesn't work. So then I'm going to move it over and do 6 into 24, which is 4 times. And since it's just 24, it's not 240. I know that 6 goes into 24 4 times, so I'm going to stack that on top. And I'm going to multiply. 4 times 6 is 24. After I multiply, I subtract, and my remainder is 0. So again, my last step is to come up here and add everything that I have stacked. 900 plus 80 plus 4 gets me 984, and I don't have any remainder, so I am done. And that is the same